My nephew and I still talk about this experience from time to time, about something we witnessed one night. We were Native American from a reservation in Canada. It happened quite a while back, maybe 14 years ago, maybe more. I can't recall exactly, but I know it was a long time ago, when we were younger and we had the house to ourselves. While I was watching TV one night, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, as if I was sensing something that wasn't right. My nephew came knocking on the door and allowed himself into the house. He then said to me, "Uncle, I heard someone crying by the road. I was just walking along the driveway. Maybe they're drunk or something." Now, we do have the occasional drunk visitor, which is really annoying, and I don't drink myself. So I went outside to have a cigarette and check this out. My nephew came along, and I asked him whereabout he heard the crying coming from. And as he pointed in the direction that he had heard it from, I heard it for myself. It was coming from a field that led close to my uncle's house. My uncle was a cattle farmer. Now, I didn't have a gun or a bow at the time, so I decided to grab a baseball bat from the storage room and my bear spray. I do a lot of hiking, and the area has bears from time to time. They do come into the yard or get too close, and the dogs would chase them off, or they would bark nonstop, letting us know that they were there. I gave my nephew the bear spray and a Maglite flashlight. I mentioned it could be lynx, as they were seen here from time to time as well. When I was going to tell him to keep an eye out for eye shine, we both saw eyes shine. And whatever those eyes belonged to, it wasn't a lynx, nor was it a normal animal. Wendigo is talked about in our culture, but many assume it's just a tale to tell around the campfire. But upon seeing this, it may just be true, because what we saw in front of us no less than 30 feet away, sitting like a frog would, was something that was grayish or pale and thin, and looked like it was starving, as its bones were noticeable through its emaciated frame, and had fairly large eyes that appeared black with no pupils. More curious than afraid, and likely just plain stupid, I chuckle to myself now writing this, but I approached it. It backed up in a way that resembled a crab going backwards into the tall grass with cattails. It was a marshy type area. I went to the spot it had been moments before, and I noticed where the water it had stepped, the mud was kicked up and disturbed. But where the thing had been, it had left no signs of which direction it went. All I could see was the bottom of the pond water. I went back to where my nephew stood, and we stood back to back, watching out. We didn't know if we were fine or if we were just getting ambushed by this thing. I was still in that moment of disbelief of what I had just seen, and my nephew began to shine the flashlight around to try and spot wherever it may have went. He stopped when he had shown the light on it. He found it, and we saw it standing upright by the fence line that bordered off the farm from my dad's. It was standing sideways from us, a bit hunched over, and slowly tilting its head in our direction to look at us. Despite us shining the light right on it, it just vanished. We didn't even see it run or move, and it was gone. We shined the light everywhere again, trying to see where we would spot it next. And I told my nephew we should get back to the house right now. We literally walked backwards together the entire way back, looking to the last area we had seen it. We stood on the veranda, having a cigarette again, trying to calm our nerves and trying to make sense of what we just saw. Just when I was about to say Wendigo, and I mean I got as far as saying it probably, when we heard something screaming right by the driveway. The sound made us freeze in our spots. It was a scream we had never heard before. And mind you, we know what mountain lions and other animals sound like, but this wasn't no earthly animal. We stayed in place once again, trying to find it with a flashlight, but we couldn't. We didn't see much of anything. We saw no movement, and we even flinched when the dogs had suddenly showed up out of nowhere, but that's when we realized something. The entire time we hadn't noticed the dogs weren't around. After all, they usually followed us when we walked around. We took the dogs coming out as a sign it had left. My nephew and I agree that we hope we never see or hear it again. And I don't blame the dogs for hiding. If I knew it was in that field, I would have hid too. Did you like the story? Check out our channel for more.